folks. Welcome to Art and Healing. I'm Diana, for those of you that don't know me. So this is our first virtual edition, and I'm really excited to get to welcome you into my space. I'm all set up here with a little corner, and I'll talk a little bit about making environment in just a second. I've also gathered my art supplies together, so yeah, grateful that you're here to share this space with me. For those of you who haven't done arts and healing before, just a quick description. So mainly what we do is come together to celebrate the way that we have moved through this world with beauty and strength to survive and to do more than survive, to create. This is a space where we are resources for each other. You guys have been an amazing resource for me, and I hope that I've been a resource for you. And this is also a space where we feel safe to tell truths. Truths about ourselves, truth about our experiences, stories about our pasts, and question, who we are. And I hope that you'll join me today in doing that. So yeah, get nice and comfy, and we'll get started in just a second. First things first is, in arts and healing, we always kind of set up an environment. And what I mean by environment is kind of creating a space that feels good and warm and safe. And this can look like a ton of different things for different people. For me, I've created a little mini one here in front of me. I have a little birthday candle, like an oversized birthday candle in a jar, some pretty shells that I found, and some rocks. These are all things that remind me of how much beauty there is in the world, even if it's hard to see or hard to remember at different points in time. It usually has my tea or my coffee, and then sometimes I'll have music playing in the background, something that smells good. So just creating a safe, warm space, creating beauty in and around yourself is just a good reminder that's your power, that's within your ability to kind of hold that for yourself, no matter what's going on in the world, or even inside yourself. You can still create a beautiful space and bring yourself into that beauty, even if it doesn't feel that great in here. The other part of this is obviously getting all your art supplies together. And so I just kind of chosen a random assortment of paintbrushes and permanent markers and pencils. I have some colored pencils and crayons here. And then some old tubes of paint, which I'll get back to in a little bit, that are kind of running low. So in arts and healing, we always experiment. So I invite you to experiment, get silly with me, loosen up. We're going to try new things in here. One of the things that we try a lot is playing with story. And I say playing because this isn't hard, fast rules. It's just like art. When we do art, we play, we explore. And when we listen to stories, we play and we explore. And a lot of the time, I like to bring in a children's story. Because I think that's kind of the best invitation to let go of some of these ideas about who we are and what we want and what we need, is by kind of remembering the child that's inside here. So this is one of my favorite stories, and I thought that I would come and share it with you today. It's called Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse. And I'm going to start by reading this to you all. So, Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse by Leo Lionni. Help! Help! A mouse! There was a scream, then a crash. Cups, saucers, and spoons were flying in all directions. Alexander ran for his hole as fast as his little legs would carry him. All Alexander wanted was a few crumbs, and yet every time they saw him, they would scream for help or chase him with a broom. One day, When there was no one in the house, Alexander heard a squeak in Annie's room. He sneaked in, and what did he see? Another mouse, but not an ordinary mouse like himself. Instead of legs, it had 2 little wheels, and on its back there was a key. "Who are you?" asked Alexander. "I'm Willie the Wind-Up Mouse, Annie's favorite toy. They wind me to make me run around in circles. They cuddle me, and at night I sleep on a soft white pillow between the doll and the woolly bear. Everyone loves me." "They don't care for me much," said Alexander sadly. But he was happy to have found a friend. "Let's go to the kitchen and look for crumbs," he said. "Oh, I can't," said Willie. "I can only move when they wind me. But I don't mind. Everybody loves me." Alexander, too, came to love Willie. He went to visit him whenever he could. He told him of his adventures with brooms, flying saucers, and mouse traps. Willie talked about the penguin, the woolly bear, and mostly about Annie. The 2 friends spent many happy hours together. But when he was alone, in the dark of his hideout, Alexander thought of Willie with envy. "Ah," he sighed, "why can't I be a wind-up mouse like Willie and be cuddled and loved?" One day, Willie told a strange story. "I've heard," he whispered mysteriously, "that in the garden at the end of the pebble path close to the blackberry bush, there lives a magic lizard who can change one animal into another." "Do you mean," said Alexander, "that he could change me into a wind-up mouse like you?" That very afternoon, Alexander went into the garden and ran to the end of the path. "Lizard! Lizard!" he whispered. And suddenly there stood before him, full of colors, of flowers and butterflies, a large lizard. "Is it true that you can change me into a wind-up mouse?" asked Alexander in a quivering voice. "When the moon is round," said the lizard, "bring me a purple pebble." For days and days, Alexander searched the garden for a purple pebble in vain. He found yellow pebbles and blue pebbles and green pebbles, but not one tiny purple pebble. At last, tired and hungry, he returned to the house. In a corner of the pantry, he saw a box full of old toys, and there, between blocks and broken dolls, was Willie. "What happened?" said Alexander, surprised. Willie told him a sad story. It had been Annie's birthday, and there had been a party, and everyone had brought a gift. The next day, Willie sighed. "Many of the old toys were dumped in this box. We will all be thrown away." Alexander was almost in tears. Poor, poor Willie, he thought. But then suddenly something caught his eyes. Could it really be? Yes, it was. It was a little purple pebble. All excited, he ran to the garden, the precious pebble tight in his arms. There was a full moon out of breath. Alexander stopped near the blackberry bush. "Lizard, lizard, in the bush," he called quickly. The leaves rustled, and there stood the lizard. "The moon is round, the pebble found," said the lizard. "Who or what do you wish to be?" "I want to be..." Alexander stopped. Then suddenly he said, "Lizard, lizard, could you change Willie into a mouse like me?" The lizard blinked. There was a blinding light, and then all was quiet. The purple pebble was gone. Alexander ran back to the house as fast as he could. The box was there, but alas, it was empty. Too late, he thought. and with a heavy heart he went to his hole in the baseboard. Something squeaked. Cautiously, Alexander moved closer to the hole. There was a mouse inside. "Who are you?" said Alexander, a little frightened. "My name is Willie the Mouse." "Willie," cried Alexander. The lizard did it." He hugged Willie, and then they ran to the garden path, and there they danced until dawn. I want you to hold that story in your heart and your mind for a moment. See where it rests, how it feels in your body. And take a deep breath. If you need to pause this video for a little, you're super welcome to. And just kind of let it settle inside you. A story is a wonderful thing because there's no right answer, there's no truth. It's all about how you take it in and interpret it, and what it means to you. It's very similar to art in the fact that it belongs to no one and everyone all at the same time. And it is so much about your truth. So what truth do you hear in that story? Who do you see in that story? Can you find yourself in it? Can you find others? I invite you to search for a word that resonates with you, or a phrase that spoke to you, or called some sort of feeling. Hold that for a moment. And if you'd like, you can write it lightly on the center of your paper to help you hold that thought. For me, it was the phrase, who or what do you wish to be? This is what calls on my mind and heart when I hear this story. For you, it might be something different, and I'm really, really excited and curious to hear what you saw in the story. But for now, I'm going to share kind of what it means to me a little bit. For me, I hear a lot of self-doubt in the little mouse in the story that feels unloved and unwanted for simply being who they are and trying to survive and wanting to be something different, something loved and wanted, even at the price of losing something precious like their freedom. And it's not until they realize how precious that freedom is that they learn to kind of be grateful for who and what they are. That's what I hear when I hear the story. What about you? Do you resonate with the main mouse character? Do you resonate with the little mouse with the key in its back? Ready for a change, ready for something different? Do you resonate with the lizard? Someone that helps others transform, to find themselves, to seek something different? Do you see someone you love in these characters? For my piece of art today, I think I'm going to focus on the main feeling I got when I read this. If there was one feeling that kind of popped out when I heard this story, I invite you to ask yourself, what was the main feeling that popped out? And for me, it was actually joy. It was the reminder that I need to celebrate being me, and how amazing that is to just be me at whatever price it costs, that is such a gift. So I'm going to celebrate that in my picture today. I'm going to answer this question: who or what do you wish to be? And I'm going to write the word me. And from there, I can start to add color, and I can start to add images, and I can even add more words if I want to. So in front of me, I have just some colored pencils and some crayons and some different supplies here. But I also wanted to show you what I'm doing with these old tubes of paint that are basically empty. So one of the best things you can do with just tiny scraggles of dried up paint to make them go farther is to turn them into watercolors. And so I'll just squeeze whatever I can out of here and then add a little bit of water. And then just mix it. And I'll do that with a few different paints. I have some yellows and some oranges. Sometimes you'll have paints where you can't open the lid. Like this one's easy to open, so I can just squeeze some out. But then it might be so tiny, the amount that I can get out of there, that it's easier to just cut it open and squeeze out any paint stuck at the back. And I'm just mixing these actually in like a little food carton I got from a pastry. It just had these little individual wells that I thought would be perfect for paint, so I just kind of grabbed that out of the recycling bin, and that's what I'm using for my watercolor dish. And I think I'm gonna use only 4 colors today. I think yeah, see, this one's pretty empty. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any this way. No. So I'm just going to cut this one too. And squeeze out whatever little bit I can, if I can get any out. Yeah. So there's hardly any in here. It's pretty dry. I'll show you. I don't have to actually give up on this. I can actually scrape some out. And still put it in here. And let it soak for a bit. And so you won't get color right away, but you can actually let it soak for just a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of this one too and see if I can get some blue. Okay. And it's not going to be really dark because I didn't have very much left, but I'm actually going to choose to work with that and just kind of play with that color. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is start by putting some color down. Sometimes when I'm not sure what to paint or what to create, I just ask myself what color feels good, or what color I'm feeling in my body right now. And this yellow is feeling really, really good. I'm going to continue by writing some things that I really, really am grateful to find in myself. So I'm going to write strength right here. Maybe creativity here. Maybe love. Joy. And the kind that was hard-earned. Wonder. So you could fill the page with different things that you really love about yourself and you're grateful to find in yourself. Add more color. I'm going to start adding some lines in. Just playing with the mood of it. Sometimes what we make doesn't have a hard and fast definition or interpretation. It can just be free-flowing. And it isn't until later we understand what it is we're making. Or we understand what something meant or felt like to us. In this way, we get to be our own partner in healing. We create, and then we look, and then we find answers, all within a quiet space with ourselves. Because no one knows you better than you. When I think of the story, I also I'm kind of reminded of ways in which I've wanted to be a little wind-up mouse. Someone that maybe functioned or worked better in the system around me. There's been moments that I've mourned not being able to be that way. And I sat and thought about that a little bit. Where did that come from? What does that mean? What would I have to give up in order to be this idea of who I imagine that person is? And when I start thinking of what I would have to give up, just like the mouse in the story, I find gratitude again for who I am, and the choices I've made to continue to be who I am. I think the reason I like this story is a lot of what we do in art and healing is about how we have healed and transformed and have grown and have overcome. And this story is a little different. It's about remembering, at least to me, it's about remembering not to change. No matter how many things come along that make us feel like we need to harden or to conform or to be what we think other people want us to be, to remind ourselves to hold that really tender truth about ourselves close, to not forget who we really are, who we really want to be. Because sometimes healing is about not letting people change you. You can do this piece in layers where you start with colors, you add on words, and then when it's dry, you can go back to working with crayon or with colored pencil or with whatever you have to create images. I'm feeling inspired to actually draw the little mouse from the story, because I feel really, really connected to the little mouse in the story a lot. One of my favorite things about stories, it's so easy to find kind of like a kindred spirit in a story, a friend that you can take with you. There's a lot of stories which have been really like lifelong friends, and that have helped me remember certain things about myself. So I think I'm going to carry this mouse with me as a part of my story. This is also an opportunity to write. If you are a writer and less comfortable with using paints and art supplies, you can start using this as a point of writing. For me, I think that the phrase, "Who or what do you wish to be?" would be a really good starting point for a poem that I might work on a little bit at a time. It might be a good point of asking that question as the beginning of writing your own story, whether it's a true one or a narrative. Sometimes we start on one piece and we immediately want to go on to a different one. Maybe there's another part of the story that feels really important, so I might get another piece of paper and start on a different part of the story. One having to do with the lizard. The lizard is another character that I really feel like thinking about and talking about. Just a lot of you remind me of the lizard for your friends, where you act as the person helping to transform, and the person helping to remind your friends that they're wonderful just the way they are. And I see that. I see that every time I come into the studio or when I check into Facebook. I keep seeing you guys being there for each other in that way. So another idea that you guys can take away from this video today is creating a piece of art to gift to someone to remind them how amazing and beautiful they are, just the way they are, unchanged. And yeah, kind of pay it forward a little bit, gift this feeling and this space to someone else by making a piece of art for them. So who or what do you wish them to be? Just who they are. I'm really grateful to have shared this space with you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really, really look forward to seeing any art you make or sharing any stories or interpretations of the story that we read this at the beginning of this video. Yeah, and if this is something that feels good, let me know and I can make more of this style, but we will always experiment with new things, whether they're stories or other ways of kind of touching base with ourselves and with each other. So I really hope you have a beautiful day and keep making art. Remember to create sacred, safe spaces no matter where you are or what's happening in your world. And yeah, love you all. See you soon. Bye.